One of our clients just signed Bill Gates' daughter as a client. And before you think that was some crazy coincidence or a lucky DM, I'm telling you it wasn't. It was the direct result of a content and outbound system we specifically built for him on LinkedIn and Twitter. You see, when he came to us, he already knew that posting on LinkedIn and Twitter would bring him clients. He'd seen it work for other competitors and he really believed in it. But every time he sat down to do it, the business got in the way. And the content stopped flowing and he was back to square one. So we took it off of his plate completely. And in this video, I'm going to show you the exact system we used to make that happen. But I'm also going to do something most people making case study videos never do. I'm going to pull up his exact content strategy and the post that actually led to Bill Gates' daughter signing as a client and walk you through every single post, what we were thinking, why we wrote it, and exactly how his content engine turned a cold connection into a booked call with one of the biggest brands in the entire nation. That way you don't just understand how this system works, but you can see it work in real life. So let's get into it. All right, cool. So let's get into this bit. Here is the profile we actually used to book over 25 calls and sign Bill Gates' daughter as a client for this Meta Ads agency. And before working with us, he knew the ROI that came from posting content on Twitter and LinkedIn, but he struggled to stay consistent. And that's something a lot of founders struggle with. It's the biggest pain point that I hear when I'm on sales calls. I'm talking to the B2B founders, whether it's in e-com, ads, finance, any industry. All these founders, they just don't have time to post on LinkedIn. But once you do get consistent, the ROI really starts to show. And I think you'll see it here as I walk through our entire process that we approached with this client. So here's actually him messaging me that he's going to work with Bill Gates' daughter thanks to us. And she actually came inbound from one of the posts that I'm about to go over. And it wasn't just one of the posts, it was a culmination of posting over time. It wasn't, post day one and immediately Bill Gates' daughter is booking a call with us. This happened after months and months of nurturing and continuously providing value day after day, along with a lot of other brands that came to an inbound and outbound. So it wasn't just one call booked with Bill Gates' daughter, but you'll start to see this builds up over time. And when you're really, really consistent and you're putting out really valuable stuff that brand owners and people within your ICP can get behind, it really does start to pay off, and content becomes one of the most important parts of your entire agency or brand. And it not only brings calls in, but it builds you up as an ultimate authority in your industry or niche, and sets you apart from your competitors. And you'll start winning deals over them with these big clients, simply because you've built enough trust with content. So the first thing we did here with our client was really to just start posting the right kind of content. So before us, like I said, he was super inconsistent, that's given. But what he also was doing when he was posting super fluffy, personal, I wouldn't say unimportant, but not relevant content. It was a lot of lifestyle stuff, a lot of, fluffy duffy stuff that got a lot of likes, but didn't actually bring in leads. And yes, we did post a lot of personal stuff for him. We'd post about his life, because people do want that personal side, but a majority of your clients are going to come from super targeted, specific, case study driven content. And as you can see here, this thread did really well for us. Here are some of the things he's learned, and how he approaches his full funnel operating system. This is his unique mechanism that we really tried to push within his content that he uses to get brands to $10 million on a super dense thread. I won't go through the whole thing here, but this kind of gives you an idea for the tone we tried to set with him. We're coming off as a super sophisticated e-commerce operator who has managed well over $20 million in ad spend for over 40 D2C brands. And this was a continued hook that we use a ton because we want to give off competency up front in this hook, in this thread specifically. We want to show, a brand owner scrolling Twitter that this guy knows what he's doing. We're not just giving out how-to advice. We're not just spamming advice. We're actually backing it up with credibility. So that's something super, super important to keep in content when you are posting how-to content or super technical stuff. You want to actually back it up with real numbers and real proof showing you are who you say you are. And then, of course, also providing real value. So, like I said, these are super dense, value-driven posts that are specific to his ICP. Like I said, none of this is super fluffy duffy. It's very rooted in what his ICP was looking for, and they're meant to really, really help them out with their daily struggles. And essentially, we extracted all of this content on a content interview where I would be researching the industry, researching his ICP, his pain points. All right, what's going on right now? what are some of the biggest pain points you've had with your clients. I'd interview him, and then we'd extract that and turn that into content that's hyper relevant to his ICP. And like I said, most ghostwriting agencies, they optimize their offer to get you a bunch of followers and likes. So posting super broad general content that appeals to the public. See here, we're not getting a ton of views, we're doing well, but we're not like going viral. We're really more concerned about getting the right people and getting the right eyes on our content. So being super specific to e-commerce, because that's who our client here actually serves. For example, if you're selling 10K packages to e-commerce brands, you don't want to speak about small transformations or small strategies in the general e-com landscape, or just general like lifestyle or motivational stuff in general. Your whales will not care. You need the right kind of content to attract the right kind of followers. So that's case studies, your specific expertise, personal transformation stories relevant to your service. This client actually started his own e-commerce brand. I don't have an example post here, but we would actually post about his own journey starting his own e-commerce brand, and that resonated a ton with target prospects as well. If he can run his own e-commerce brand, then he can also do this for me. So these kind of personal transformation stories aren't a total no-go, especially if they're relevant to your service. And then reactive topics, of course, your hot takes. And I'll get into this in a moment. It's super important to have personality and give your hot takes, give your opinions. But yeah, this is kind of the general structure and the buckets that we were aiming for. Something super important with content that we actually really focused on with our client here is we stood for something. This is kind of an odd example, but if you look at someone like Professor Jang, he's recently blown up over the internet, and there's one profoundly important reason why I think he's blown up. It's because he's audience split. Essentially what this means is 50% of people really hate his anti-American takes, and 50% of people love his agenda. And I'm not saying he's good or bad. I'm just simply saying what Professor Jang does is he stands for something. He puts his foot in the ground, and he has quote unquote hot takes that some people like and some people don't, and he builds his audience. This is really how you build an audience, and how you get a lot of eyeballs on your content, how you get and when you put it in the context of business and your offer, this is how you get people to understand your methodology and really get behind you. So examples here: premium branding doesn't define the quality of your customer. That's a terrible way to think. The offer does. See how this is sort of framed? It's super putting your foot in the sand, saying this is how it is. It's not, this is one way to think about it. This might be a good way to think about it. That's a terrible way to think. And our client here was really big on offer and how important offer is. So this is a theme, a content bucket we really tried to lean into, is how offer is super important, because it's something not everyone in his landscape focuses on. So this is one of those contrarian type posts that really builds trust with people who maybe didn't realize this, or maybe kind of agrees with him and doesn't like the general consensus, how people don't focus on offer in e-commerce. So this is an example of a post that puts his foot in the sand and really defines who he is and who his brand is. Another one, I've managed 20 million in ad spend. I can confidently tell you a lot of media buying online is BS. Once again, putting our foot in the sand, calling people out, and not being scared to call people out, because that's just the game. And if you don't agree with someone, you should tell me. You need to. A powerful personal brand is built off the back of these kinds of takes. So I highly recommend you and I kind of have an easy way to find what makes you unique. Think about what you don't agree with compared to everyone else in your industry. Turn those topics into your content pillars, and then become known for talking about those things. An example I could talk about for myself, I've recently blown up with lead magnets. I've sort of become the lead magnet guy. I can really lean into that angle of traditional content is dead. Start posting more lead magnets. They're super important. The algorithm is prioritizing those, et cetera, et cetera. So hopefully that gives you a good idea. And then moving on to the actual monetization. So I call this monetization because inbound traffic is tough to sort of predict. The real money on LinkedIn and Twitter is made in the DMs. So that's kind of why I call it monetization. We're getting all this traffic with our posts, but we're monetizing that traffic in the DMs. And here's actually an inbound DM that we received on this account. There are a few, ways to generate leads in the DMs. One is obviously they come to you inbound and then you have a conversation with them. This comes from, direct offers and CTAs in your post. You have good profile positioning, so your profile answers your client's questions immediately upon landing. So like, can this guy help me? What does he do? What result will he give me? That's another way. And then lastly, proof of results. When you post a really banger case study, like this, the red was a really good one, brought us quite a few inbound leads. We showed off a ton of social proof, and therefore a bunch of people came to us inbound, inquiring about our services. So that's kind of how to generate inbound leads. But once again, they're not super predictable. Outbound DMs are super predictable, and you can call them outbound, inbound DMs, whatever. But this is reaching out to people who already know you, on Twitter, on LinkedIn. So this is new followers, new connection requests, people who've commented on your post, people who've retweeted your tweets, or people who already follow you. These are people showing you signals of interest, saying, "Hey, I like this guy's content. That case study is pretty neat. This is an interesting take. I like this insight." That's and when you see these qualified, when you see when you see your qualified prospects, liking your post, following you, etc. Once again, it's a signal that you need to message them, because 99% of the time they're not going to do it for you. Yes, you'll get these inbound leads for sure, but once again, most people are not taking that initiative. You need to be the one to take the initiative there. And a really, really good example here that I love to bring up, I actually got this from a guy named J.K. Molina. Imagine walking into a Walmart and you need milk, and you have no idea where the milk is. When you walk into that Walmart, you're most likely not gonna go ask someone where's the milk, even though you don't know where the milk is. However, if an employee comes up to you and says, "Hey, can I help you look for anything?" you are much more likely to tell them, "Yeah, I'm actually looking for the milk. I don't know where it is." And then they'll lead you to it. So that's kind of the same idea here. But if I go to them and say, "Hey, we can help you find the milk. We can help you, with your paid ad. What are you struggling with? Here's my calendar link." Like, when you go to them, it makes it way easier. And oftentimes you'll find followers who are just waiting for you to DM them. And they're like, "Yeah, I was just following you for a while and I liked your content. And I've been waiting for quite a while, to invest in paid ads. Just haven't felt like the right time. But yeah, I'll book a call." And that's why DMs are so important. And like 80 to 90% of our revenue for our clients, and even my personal brand, come from the DMs. So you have to be DMing every single follower, liker, commenter, profile viewer, person, requesting a lead magnet. All these are massive signals that you need to capitalize on. You'll miss out on so much revenue if you don't. And then in terms of what to actually do in the DMs, we don't use robotic scripts. You must be a real human, especially nowadays when everyone has some sort of AI detector. I highly recommend you use something super specific. You look at their profile for 2 seconds. Where are they from? Can you relate to them in any way? Can you compliment them on anything? Can you make any authority building observations? And then can you make any personal connections? So that's kind of the framework we use for DMs. It converts fairly well. DMs, in terms of traffic, this is super important for Twitter specifically. And this was a big reason we were able to get so many calls for our client here. It's because we had a great source of traffic. And there are 2 ways to specifically get traffic. And when I say traffic, I mean, engagement on your posts, getting actual eyeballs to see your posts. There are 2 ways to get traction on Twitter. First is actually engaging with people. So that means commenting on other posts, commenting on others' posts, within your industry. And that does a few things. First, it kind of works as like SEO in Twitter. So you'll start to pop up on other people's accounts who follow the people you're commenting on. So if I comment on person A's account, everyone following person A has a much higher likelihood of actually seeing my profile pop up, because I commented on their post. So I'm kind of like hijacking their audience, and it gives me a little more visibility in that way. And then also the algorithm rewards you a bit more because X sees that you're being active, you're engaging with other people, you have premium, which is super important, and therefore will boost your reach. Second are engagement pods, and on Twitter these work really well. I'll just say that once again, I won't point you in the direction. I can't This sauce is specifically reserved for our paying clients, but I will say if you can find a trustworthy engagement pod that can get you, instant likes, comments, and retweets and bookmarks on your posts right when they go out, especially on Twitter where you have zero traffic coming in. It's super, super tough to get organic traffic when you're just posting with zero followers. This will be a massive ROI if you have to pay for an engagement pod. Like I said, we have this internally, and they work really well. That is reserved for our paying clients, but yeah, they'll go a long ways if you can get your hands on one. Okay, so now you've got the full framework. You know how we were able to get this result for our client. And look, you can absolutely go test this for yourself. But what I see happen almost every single time a founder tries to get consistent with content on their own, the hooks start to feel off, the content pillars aren't dialed in, the DMs aren't firing, and while you're busy actually running your business, the content engine gets completely ignored and usually just falls into the abyss. So if you want me and my team to build and run this entire system for you, book a call using the first link in the description. And if you want to see what results like this, and if you want to see another case study of what this looks like in practice, I did another full breakdown of how we closed $42,000 in 30 days and booked over 100 sales calls for another paid ads agency using this exact system. Watch that video right here. Drop a like and subscribe if this helped, and I'll see you in the next one.